Welcome to a journey back in time, where glitz and glamour ruled Hollywood, but lurking in the shadows of the silver screen were some of the most sinister villains you've likely never heard of. From dastardly masterminds to chilling femme fatale, old Hollywood was filled with iconic characters that often left a haunting impression. Yet, not all of these villains became household names. In this video, we're diving deep into the forgotten reels of cinema history to unearth the top 10 old Hollywood villains you don't know. Prepare to meet the lesser-known antagonists who were just as ruthless, twisted, and unforgettable as their more famous counterparts. So dim the lights, settle in, and let's explore these unsung villains who left their mark in the golden age of Hollywood. Henry Daniell. Henry Daniell was a British actor known for his portrayals of refined, calculating villains in Hollywood films, particularly in the 1930s and 1940s. He often played aristocratic or upper-class characters who concealed their malevolent intentions behind a veneer of civility and charm. Daniell's villains were typically calm, controlled, and manipulative, relying on intelligence and psychological tactics rather than brute force. His characters were usually schemers, driven by greed, revenge, or power, and they conveyed a chilling sense of danger through subtlety rather than overt aggression. Daniell's performances were marked by his aristocratic demeanor, distinctive voice, and ability to convey menace in a quiet, restrained manner. He excelled in roles where his characters used charm and calculated moves to control or deceive others. This made him one of Hollywood's go-to actors for portraying villains with a cold, intellectual edge, leaving a lasting impact on the genre. Notable examples of his villainous roles include The Prisoner of Zenda, 1937, The Great Impersonation, 1942, and The Man in the Iron Mask, 1939. George Sanders. George Sanders was a British actor known for his suave, sophisticated portrayal of villains in Hollywood films, particularly during the 1940s and 1950s. He became a renowned villainous charmer, playing characters who were smooth, witty, and often morally corrupt. Sanders' villains were typically elegant, well-spoken, and self-assured, with a cold, calculating nature that contrasted with their outward charm. His performances blended arrogance with a sly sense of menace, often making his characters both irresistible and detestable. Some of Sanders' most iconic villainous roles include Shere Khan in Disney's The Jungle Book, 1967, All About Eve, 1950, as the conniving theater critic Addison DeWitt, in The Picture of Dorian Gray, 1945, where he played the morally corrupt Henry Wotton. His unique ability to mix charm with malice made him a standout in the realm of cinematic villains, and his characters often used intelligence and manipulation rather than brute force to achieve their goals. Sanders' trademark delivery, marked by a smooth, almost velvety voice, added to the chilling effectiveness of his villainous roles. Gail Sgard. Gail Sgard was famous for her role as a femme fatale or villainess, often playing characters with a dark, mysterious edge. Her most iconic villainous performance came in The Mark of Zorro, 1940, where she portrayed Monica, a treacherous and manipulative woman. Sgard's ability to combine beauty with sinister intent made her an effective villain in both period dramas and suspense thrillers. Her performances were often marked by a sense of elegance and mystery, using her alluring presence to create tension. Although she wasn't a traditional villain like those seen in action-heavy roles, her characters often had a malicious undercurrent, using their intelligence and seductiveness to manipulate situations and people. Sgard's ability to convey menace through subtlety and poise made her a memorable figure in Hollywood's golden era of villainy, particularly in her roles as conniving women who often drove the plot's conflict with their actions. Lionel Atwell. Lionel Atwell was a British actor who became a prominent character actor in Hollywood, often playing villains, particularly in horror and thriller films during the 1930s and 1940s. He was known for his strong presence, commanding voice, and ability to portray sinister, often menacing characters with intelligence and intensity. Atwell frequently played mad scientists, corrupt authorities, and other morally ambiguous figures, often in genre films like mysteries, crime thrillers, and horror. His villainous roles were marked by an air of sophistication mixed with a capacity for cruelty, and he had an uncanny ability to make his characters both compelling and terrifying. Notable villainous performances by Atwell include The Mystery of the Wax Museum, 1933, as the demented Dr. Ivan Igor, a disfigured wax sculptor who uses murder to create his lifelike figures. Atwell delivers one of his most iconic villainous portrayals. Dr. X, 1932, Atwell plays Dr. Xavier, a mysterious figure involved in grisly experiments, in this early color horror film. Son of Frankenstein, 1939, he plays the sinister Inspector Crow, a character who hides dark secrets. Atwell's ability to play villains with both charm and menace made him a memorable figure in classic Hollywood, and his roles in genre films solidified his place as one of the era's top antagonists. His performances often combined an eerie calmness with a sense of underlying danger, making his characters unpredictable and unsettling. Judith Anderson. Judith Anderson was an Australian actress who became famous for her powerful portrayal of villains in Hollywood, particularly in the 1940s and 1950s. She was known for her commanding presence, deep voice, and ability to play characters that were both cold and menacing, often with an air of psychological control and manipulation. One of her most iconic villainous roles was as Mrs. Danvers in Alfred Hitchcock's Rebecca, 1940. In this film, she plays the sinister housekeeper of Manderley, a woman consumed by obsession and jealousy over the memory of her late mistress, Rebecca. Anderson's portrayal of Mrs. Danvers is one of the most chilling and memorable villainous performances in cinematic history, as she subtly manipulates and torments the new Mrs. De Winter, creating an atmosphere of dread and suspense. Judith Anderson's ability to convey malice with restraint made her a standout in Hollywood. Her villains were often characterized by an air of cold authority, psychological dominance, and an almost hypnotic control over others. She brought a quiet but terrifying intensity to her roles, which often left a lasting impression on audiences. In addition to Rebecca, she also played notable villains in films like The Strange Case of Dr. RX, 1942, and The Woman in the Window, 1944. Her portrayal of villainous characters remains an essential part of classic Hollywood's legacy, where she became a symbol of the cold, calculating antagonist, often with a psychological or emotional underpinning to her evil actions. George McCrady. George McCrady was an American actor renowned for his portrayal of sophisticated yet sinister villains in classic films and television. Known for his distinctive voice, aristocratic demeanor, and intense presence, McCrady often played antagonists who exuded a sense of cunning and cold ruthlessness. His scarred face, a result of a car accident, added to his menacing on-screen persona. One of McCrady's most memorable villainous roles was in Gilda, 1946, where he played the cruel and manipulative casino owner Baldwin Munson opposite Rita Hayworth and Glenn Ford. He also starred as a villain in Paths of Glory, 1957, directed by Stanley Kubrick, portraying the callous and ambitious General Miro. McCrady's ability to infuse his characters with intelligence and menace made him a standout antagonist in Hollywood's golden age. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi was a Hungarian-American actor famous for his portrayal of dark, mysterious, and often menacing villains, most notably Count Dracula. Lugosi became iconic for playing the titular role in Dracula, 1931, where his chilling yet charismatic performance defined the image of the vampire in popular culture. His hypnotic stare, thick Hungarian accent, and deliberate, dramatic delivery made him the quintessential embodiment of the classic horror villain. Beyond Dracula, Lugosi portrayed various other sinister characters in horror films, such as in White Zombie, 1932, and Murders in the Rue Morgue, 1932. He often played roles that emphasized his ability to create an aura of dread and suspense, becoming a staple of Universal Studios' horror film era. Despite being typecast in villainous roles, Lugosi's influence on the horror genre remains enduring, with his performances inspiring future portrayals of gothic and supernatural antagonists. John Carradine. John Carradine was an American actor celebrated for his commanding presence and deep, resonant voice, which he used to portray a wide array of memorable villains in classic films, especially in the horror and western genres. With a career spanning over 6 decades, he appeared in more than 350 movies, often playing sinister or morally ambiguous characters. Carradine was well known for his roles in classic Universal horror films, such as House of Frankenstein, 1944, and House of Dracula, 1945, where he played the iconic character of Count Dracula. He brought an aristocratic and eerie quality to his villains, blending menace with a sense of theatrical grandeur. In addition to horror, Carradine frequently appeared in westerns, often portraying ruthless outlaws or shady figures. His versatility and distinctive appearance made him a prolific and unforgettable villain, contributing significantly to the mystique and allure of Hollywood's golden age of horror and westerns. Evelyn Ankers. Evelyn Ankers was a British-American actress best known for her roles in Universal Studios horror films during the 1940s. She earned the nickname the Queen of the Screamers for her frequent appearances as the imperiled heroine rather than a villain. Ankers starred alongside many horror icons, such as Lon Chaney Jr., Bela Lugosi, and Boris Karloff. While she often played the leading lady or damsel in distress, Ankers was rarely cast as a true villain. Instead, she was more recognized for her roles in films like The Wolf Man, 1941, Ghost of Frankenstein, 1942, and Son of Dracula, 1943, where she portrayed sympathetic or strong female characters caught in terrifying situations. Her performances added emotional depth and suspense to these classic horror movies, making her a memorable figure in the genre. Thomas Gomez. Thomas Gomez was an American character actor celebrated for his versatility and commanding screen presence, often playing villains and morally complex characters. With his deep, resonant voice and imposing stature, Gomez brought a sense of gravity and authority to his roles, making him a memorable antagonist in various classic films. One of his standout villainous performances was in Key Largo, 1948, where he played the menacing gangster Curly Hoff alongside Edward G. Robinson and Humphrey Bogart. Gomez often portrayed criminals, shady businessmen, or corrupt figures, infusing his characters with both menace and a touch of sophistication. His ability to convincingly embody both the ruthlessness and vulnerability of his villains made him a respected figure in film noir and crime dramas of the 1940s and 1950s.